going to set a little timer because I know that I have the capacity to completely lose track of time. Okay, hi. My name is Leyla Brittan. I am a fiction writer, primarily a novelist. I write literary fiction and also young adult fiction separately, which is a fun combo. And I just want to say, as Brooke did, thank you so much to Jentel for having me. This has been such an incredible and fruitful experience, and I'm so grateful to be here and to be working next to these incredible artists. So I think I'm going to talk a little bit about process today and maybe do a very brief reading at the end if I have time. But I kind of wanted to give you all a glimpse into what I've been thinking about and working on since I've been here. Apologies to my fellow residents. You may have heard a lot of this already because I've kind of been working through it out loud. That's a lot of what I do. And also I wanted to say I'm not a visual artist, so my slides are more just beautiful background for people to look at. They're much less interesting than Brooke's. So I believe that every story tells the artist to some extent how it wants to be told. Every book that I've written or even short story that I've written has come to me in a completely different way. You can advance, thank you. This is my debut novel. It was a young adult novel, and this story came to me originally as a short story that I wrote back in college. And the inception of that story was two things. It was a place that I had been when I was much younger. It was this luxury summer resort on the East Coast that I went to that I thought was such a strange, otherworldly experience. And then also the character Rosaline from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, who people forget about, but she is the girl that Romeo is in love with at the beginning of the play before he meets Juliet. And she never appears on stage, but she's very important to the play because she is the plot device that gets Romeo and Juliet to meet each other. And so I thought, what if I change some details, set that story in the present day, and set it from her perspective? Because I thought that was a really interesting character who had no voice in the play. And I wrote that short story in college, and then it never quite felt right. I kind of sat with it for a couple of years, and 3 or so years later, I had the discovery that that was because it needed to be a book. And so I came to that story with the short story format. I knew what the beginning was, I knew what the ending was, and I knew what the climax was, and I had to find my way kind of through the middle. I've had another book project appear pretty fully formed in my head as a fully fleshed out outline, and I had to race to get it all down before it disappeared. And then I have another book that I've been working on that is about grief and post-traumatic flashbacks, and that one really came to me in vignettes and bits and pieces, just kind of floating out of the ether. And the process of writing that book has been the process of trying to put those pieces together in a way that's intelligible to a reader and not just to me. You can advance. This is my desk setup at Jentel. I have been working on a new book since I've been here, and I'm really excited to have been here and to have this space because I have been kind of working on revisions for a couple of these other books that I've mentioned. And I really wanted to set aside this time to start this new project that I've been thinking about and theorizing about for several months. And so I really had avoided doing a lot of work on it before I came here, aside from knowing what the seed of the story was, which was to write about long COVID. I had a really intense long COVID experience a few years ago. I was bedridden for much of 2022. And it was a really difficult time to be having that experience. I mean, it's always a difficult time to have chronic illnesses, post-viral illnesses that the medical establishment doesn't totally understand. But because it was so new, I was encountering a lot of resistance from the medical establishment and having a hard time figuring out how to handle that. And so I wanted to write about that experience and about the feelings that it created. But I had been having a hard time figuring out how to write about it. I think it's a really difficult subject. And so I did what I always do, which is I took real experiences, real emotional experiences that I've had in my life and found fictional circumstances through which to convey them. So this book that I'm working on involves a totally fictionalized illness. It's a little bit surrealist. And it's also very much about anger and rage, and there's a lot of fire in it. So when I got here, I wasn't quite sure what to do with that. I didn't know what the structure of the book looked like. I had this fake illness, I had this sort of plot, and I had a lot of fire imagery. So I did a lot of research on house fires. I was looking at their progression, risk factors, prevention tactics, how one might theoretically set one on purpose, and if there is anyone in the FBI looking at my search history, they probably think that I'm about to commit arson. But as I was doing that, I found some really interesting information about the structure of fires, their development stages, how a house fire happens. And what came to me was a memory from one of my MFA classes. I actually went to the University of Wyoming in Laramie for my MFA. And that idea was the idea of trying to find the shape of a story. And you can advance the slide. I didn't take this image, I took this off the internet. But that grief book that I was talking about earlier, I was working on during that class. And there's a scene in that book where a character is walking across a frozen river and the ice starts to crack underneath her, and she suddenly gets the sense of the dark rushing water underneath. And I realized that that scene was the perfect image for what the structure of the book was, what the narrator's consciousness was this idea of like a hard, icy sheen, but then if you crack and fall through, there's something really dark and rushing underneath. Slide. Thank you. So as I was thinking about that, and I was thinking a lot about house fires, I realized that the stages of a house fire actually really aligned with the narrative shape that I was thinking about for this book. I realized that a house fire has 4 stages with an optional 5th. And I'll go through them in a moment. But as I was looking at them, I thought, oh, this aligns really well with a 5-act structure, which is kind of what I'm thinking about for this book. And you can advance the slide. So this is my bulletin board in my office, and you can kind of see, this was my first attempt. So the first stage here is incipient, which is when ignition happens. I don't have a lot of time, so I won't go through it in too much detail. Growth, when the fire is spreading. This is the optional stage, flashover, which is when it reaches a certain point of heat in an enclosed space and everything in the room catches on fire at once, which I thought was really poetic and interesting. Fully developed, when the fire is, everything's on fire, and that's when structural decay is happening, the house is falling down, and decay, which is when the fire has consumed all available fuel or oxygen in the space and it's starting to calm down. You can see here that I don't know if you can read the text, but I originally saw flashover as this like interlude in the middle of the book where everything explodes at once. And so I had Act 1 as just the house itself, the structure of the world before anything happened. But you can advance the slide. I realized that wasn't quite working after doing a lot of fiddling with my note cards and trying to make the structure fit together. And so I got rid of that house act, made the ignition act the first one, made flashover its own, Act 3, and created my structure based on a house fire. And it's been working really well so far, and I'm really excited about it. I have 2 minutes left, so I think I'm going to just read my prologue very quickly. And this is my, thank you. I did actually take these photos. I like fire. This is the prologue to the book. This is the first draft. A figure emerges, silhouetted black against the flames. She staggers, takes a step away from the house. 2. She collapses on the grass where the dusting of snow has melted. Smoke follows, billowing through the open front door, an ever-shifting creature reaching to swallow her whole. A cluster of stunned faces watches from across the street, their bodies wrapped in winter coats. A safe enough distance from the house, but their skin still burning with the heat. A firefighter runs toward the collapsed girl, heaves her over his shoulder, and carries her toward an ambulance parked out of the smoke's reach. "Get out of here," he yells at the onlookers. "It's not safe." He lays the dark-haired girl on a stretcher. Someone in a uniform places an oxygen mask over her face. Her eyes are closed. She doesn't move. The onlookers watch, unable to tear their eyes from the scene as the lifeless girl is loaded into the ambulance and driven away, lights flashing and sirens blaring. What happened? The question is directed at a boy who has been standing with his hands on his knees at the edge of the forest across the street, vomiting thin, pale bile. Weakly, he straightens. He points at the receding ambulance. "Ask her," he says. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Hillary.
I wanted to ask about your experience with outlining
Mm-hmm.
and just generally how that feels and
Yeah. Yeah, in kind of the same way that I was talking about at the beginning, I have done, it totally depends on the project. So that my debut YA novel, which I mentioned, came from a short story. I didn't outline at all. That one I had kind of the shape of the story in my head, and in writing, we talk about plotters versus pantsers a lot, which are the people who need to plot it all out before they write it, and the people who fly by the seat of their pants. And when I wrote that book, I really identified as a pantser. And it was really this process of like wandering my way through the story, feeling it come to me as I reached through the different sections. But after that, I have had different projects where I do outline. So the one that I talked about that really appeared fully formed, which it's my witchy book that I've been talking about to some of the residents. That one I outlined very, very in close detail because I kind of knew what I wanted to happen and I didn't want to lose any of it before writing the whole thing. So I had every chapter exactly what happened. With this book, as you can kind of see on the bulletin board, I've kind of been outlining. It's sort of been trying to piece the things together, but it's more of a larger structural outline without digging too deeply into each scene. Yeah, thank you.
I'm struggling to learn on your expanded version of your bulletin board.
Mm-hmm.
Right in the middle was a card that was in color.
Oh, this one.
And I couldn't read that for that. What does it say?
It doesn't say anything. It's just a doodle of fire. I've been sitting in my studio just drawing pictures of fire. I thought it looked nice there.
I was just wondering what it was that it got color.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. You can't really tell, but these cards up here are in red pen, and those are like descriptions of the stages of the fire. So these are the acts. These are like what's actually like the scientific explanation for what's happening, and then this is the plot points. Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Thank you.